By this time, hundreds of people had arrived for the festival. There were even some of their old enemies, the Daflas, too. Obviously, the excitement was for something special, but what was it? What was going to happen? And then they thought they'd found the answer. The whole village was busy hauling upright an enormous pole. But why all this energy? What could be done with a cross between a television aerial and a maypole when there wasn't any electricity? How did this come into the festival? Whatever they were doing, it was obviously important, something everyone helped with and was interested in, and something that was a great deal of trouble, but the Haimendorfs, and apparently even some of the visitors, were still puzzled. They were amazed to see one brave man volunteer to climb to the top, at least 70 feet up, and unfasten the ropes which had been used to pull it up. But the whole contraption still looked very shaky. The ropes were coiled up and stowed away, leaving only one attached to the pole itself. Everyone was dressing up. For Apa Tani men, the fashion was a horizontal brass pin through a plaited knot above the forehead. And the tails were rewoven. All the Apa Tanis wore them. They're woven from scarlet cane attached to a belt which is never taken off. But some of the guests looked as though they had some special part to play, as though they could have been priests or wrestlers or athletic challengers. They gathered with the others towards the middle of the village and the center platform around which the festival rites were to be celebrated. Rice beer was flowing wildly, and the drumming had a frightening note about it. They all waited. This was the climax, a childish joy in performing aerial gymnastics 30 feet above the ground. A great deal of work had gone into this pole game. The preparations had meant time and trouble and disciplined cooperative effort by all the villagers. The athletes were a few of the Apa Tani young men, but obviously in their sport they were doing more than just proving themselves. Professor Haimendorf found none of the Apa Tanis could tell him why they were doing what they'd always done in these festivals for hundreds of years. They just said, this is the way it's done, the way it's always been done. Like most primitive people, the Apa Tanis can't give a reason for the central rituals of their community. It may be a form of sympathetic magic. As the crops are expected to shoot up and the years sway in the wind, so the young men swing high up into the sky. But this sympathetic magic is their own unknown secret, and no one else really knows the link between rope swinging and prayers for good crops. Apa Tani life seems as if it will go on as long as it has done, but the invasion of the outside comes faster every day. If the Haimendorfs ever return, and they say they'd like to, the children won't be quite so curious, and perhaps in another 20 years this pole game will have disappeared. After a school education, the Apa Tanis will have other interests and ambitions outside the valley.